This video is taken from a visual effects set extensions course I'm teaching with CG Masters Academy. It is an 8-week in-depth 3D Generalist course developing your skills in modeling, texturing, look development, lighting, map painting and compositing. We'll cover Maya, Mari, Photoshop and Nuke. In this next video we're going to cover creating a base color for each material. We'll look at observing reference and gathering textures. We'll organize our scene with masks. We'll look at triplanar and tileable nodes, clone stamping, color grading, and painting images. Okay, so before we begin texturing, it's good just to identify what materials there are. So for example, we've got the corrugated iron as a clear metal material. We've got these vertical bars here. We've got the concrete itself, which has those clear lines, which we'd need to match the scale of those. We have things such as the broken up concrete that you can see here, which would be a color we'd need to paint in. There are things such as the metal, which is kind of protruding out of the concrete. The concrete which is on the top looks different from the concrete from the side, so we're going to probably need to do a different triplanar projection from that. We also have other metals such as these metal bars. There are of course dirt and stains as well, which will need to be put down, but we're going to put them down in the next video. There are other interesting things such as metal bars kind of coming out of the concrete, and also we have metal panel that we see there, and also other materials. I'm not quite sure what that is, but we need to definitely get a color down for that anyway. When you're choosing your textures, just make sure that they don't have a sun shining on them with obvious shadows. You just want to make sure that they've been photographed in an overcast day and not receiving any direct illumination. If we look here, you can see that there are shadows being cast. We don't want that. So something like this, you can see here there are no shadows being cast, and it's been shot in even lighting, such as a cloudy day. That's perfect for what we want. I strongly recommend that you spend a bit of time identifying all of the materials that you want, and then going on to websites such as textures.com and then just creating a bit of a library before you start working. Talking about your library, just make sure that it's quite organized, have clearly named folders. If preferable, it's quite a good idea to also label the textures that you are going to use more clearly. So here you can see I know that I'm going to use that rusty metal one, whereas I'm not so sure about this one, so I haven't named this one. If you spend a bit of time naming and organizing your folders, it will really pay off. In the first Mari video, we exported out some separate OBJs of different parts of the geometry. Let's import some of those in now. We'll go to scene and export. One thing that I think I may have mentioned this before, but sometimes it's worth dragging and dropping that there to make life a bit easier. So now that I've got that in there, I can select that and I now have that as separate geometry. It just makes it a lot easier for adding in the masks. Let's add in the other ones as well. Now I have these different versions here. This is really useful for creating some masks. Let's have a go at creating some masks here. So in order to make masks, you needed to be able to make selections. So let's just talk a bit about the selection tools. So the first thing to be aware of is that you have the patch mode selection and face mode selection. If we just choose patch mode for a second, if I click up here, and then if I commonly use this rectangular selection. If I choose this, if I choose anything in here, it's going to select the whole patch. Whereas if I come, and what I mean by that, it's going to select the whole UV patch. If we go back to all of the geometry at the same time, if I was to, for example, select this bit here, it's going to select everything in that patch. For what we're doing, I think it's probably best to use face mode, and let's bring up the metal other. So with face mode selected, and I've clicked onto the select tool, inside here I most commonly use the rectangular selection, and then I also choose to use a smart selection mode. That smart selection mode allows me to select things a little bit more intelligently. So if I choose connectiveness mesh and I choose one of these, it's going to select the whole object. I don't have to select over the whole thing. I can just select over a little bit of it and it will take the whole object. Let's turn off smart selection mode and just go back to this for a second. If you select that, you can see that it's only selected a portion of the geometry, and the moment we tap on smart selection mode, then we can select everything. You also have connectiveness UV, which can be quite useful as well. I typically use connectedness mesh, and one other thing that's worth noting, if we let's go back to the FG building. If we have this sector facing through, this means now that when I'm here, if I select like that, it will also select the objects that are behind it. Whereas if I have select facing front, and I do more or less the same thing there, it'll only select objects that are facing the camera. So typically, I'm just going to have through and connectiveness mesh and having the smart object selected. Let's go back to the metal other object here, and let's select our first bits for making a mask. Okay, I'm just going to select that, and then I'm going to hold down Shift, left click, and drag to add that as well. Let's come down into the node viewer and create a paint node. I'm going to make it black. Click OK, click OK. And now let's look through this paint mode. So everything should come up black now. And the easiest thing is if to drag and drop the white color onto it, left mouse button, drag and drop, and then it should fill it full of white. I'm just now going to left click and click off of that so you can see that. So that's our first paint node. I'm just going to call that rods. And what I might do is just put this in a backdrop and call this masks. Let's move these masks back a little bit. I'm going to make this a bit bigger to make this easier to see. All right, let's do that again for a different one. Let's create a paint node. Stick it in here. And I'm going to put this for these plastic panels here. So mask. And let's just begin to select them. So I'm going to select this here. And another way that you can do this, of course, is you can select inside the Ortho UV view as well. Now we've got everything. If you right click in here and go to fill and white, that's another way to fill that in. Now, of course, you need to be looking, press 1 on the keyboard to look through that to be able to see the effect of that. So another way of doing this is you can load in the masks into one paint node on the red, green and blue channels, and you'll save sort of space and make your scene a bit more economic and faster. So let's just have a quick look at how we might do that. So I'm going to create paint node, click OK. Let's look through the paint node and let's select our next bit. So for this to work, you have to make sure that you've got 0 in the green, 0 in the blue, and just you'd have full 1 in each one of the channels. So for example, red has to be 1. I click OK, and now let's just drag and drop that across. So now we've got that. Let's create our next one. So maybe we'll do these railings in the green channel. So set the red to 0 and the green to 1. Drag and drop that across. Now we have that set. Let's do one more. We'll do this for the rods again. So in this particular paint node, I've now got 3 different masks just in one paint layer. So I need to separate that out. If I press tab and go to shuffle, and I can shuffle out, for example, we'll just select the green only. So we set each one of those to green, and I'll just keep the alpha as alpha so we can see it a bit more clearly. So now we have this separated out. We'd want to name this, so I might call this square railings, and I'm going to create another shuffle, line railings, and the last one I'm going to copy and paste just to make things a little bit faster. So that is green, that is red. Just going to put this above because it just makes life easier. That's going to be red, that's going to be green, this last one's going to be blue. We've gone through how to make masks. You can either put them in a paint layer just by themselves, or you can combine them into the red, green and blue channels and then separate them out using the shuffle node. For this project, in the interest of speed, I recommend you just put them into separate white and black like that. Okay, so let's have a look at how we can use these masks with tiled textures. I'm going to press tab on the keyboard and add a tiled texture. And let's double click on it and look through it. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to start off with this these metal bars along here. And I'm going to choose this rusty metal texture here. So here it is. Let's have a look at it in context. I'm going to switch the whole building back on so we can see this like this here. The scale of this probably needs to change a bit at the moment. So let's just use the UV repeat to do that. Press 5, and if I press tab and then tab again, it jumps into the other one. For right now, that's probably going to be good enough. We may need to adjust that later. The great thing about this workflow in Mari is that you can always adjust things later. You can, familiar settings like the U and the V offset there can be used as well. So let's use the mask to drop this in now over the top of the base color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the base color, select the tiled one, and press M on the keyboard to merge them. And then I need to get my mask. So let's just come back and have a look at where that is. Okay, so outside of the video, I've already made this mask. Let's get this mask dropped in. So I'm just going to bring the output into the merge there. And now let's look over, and you can see that that color has been dropped in there. Let's go through this process again. Let's do it with the corrugated iron here. So let's create a tiled texture. Look through it. And let's bring it up. So I've already created that, and there it is. Let's just have a look at it here. And I'm just going to set the repeat. Maybe we'll just do it like 5 times bigger and then just see what that looks like. That's probably going to be fine to start off with. So let's select the merge and then select the tile, shift select the tile, and press merge on the keyboard. And then let's just find the mask and let's just bring it in. Okay, so now you can see that's been brought in there. Okay, so very important for this project is going to be choosing matching concrete. And as I said before, there's 2 things that we need to look at. One is the concrete that appears on the side, the blocks that appear on the side. And the second thing is how the concrete looks from up above. I spent a bit of time looking around on textures.com and loads of different places. And what I ended up doing was I found this particular texture here, which had quite a good resolution. 1500 across by height 2000. I just filled in the holes and I checked with the filter offset just to make sure that it was tileable, which it was, and that was ready to go. The top concrete, it took me a bit more time. What I did, if we just come back a second here, see where we started off with this. I started off with this, and then I basically extended it out and did a bit of work trying to remove some of the repeating patterns. And then that got me to here, and then I did more work just to repeat some of the more repeating patterns, ready for getting it dropped down. So let's create a triplanar. Okay, so the triplanar projection is projecting from 3 different sides, from the X, from the Z, and from the Y. Let's have a look at this. I put this in a separate folder because I had to do some additional work on it. Okay, that's it dropped in. Let's just start affecting the world scale. I'm just going to select I've left click on the number there, and if I just start pushing up on the keyboard, this is going to start increasing the scale. I'm just clicking up until I'm getting close to what I want. Okay, so at the moment the scale is still not correct. If we just come back to Nuke for a second, it might be worth just taking a note. So you can see this is about the scale here. Let's come back here and probably go up to 150. Have a look at this. Probably need to go up more. Let's go to 300. That's looking a bit closer. Maybe you go to about 3. Maybe go to 400. Possibly even 500. Okay, that scale is probably good enough. And now the next thing that I want to just have a look at is where these lines are going to go. And because this is just going to be affecting it overall, I'm just looking at where's the thing that's going to be closest to camera. So it's here and also here. I probably want to just get this line to come up to the top here. And I'm just looking to see where does this line join. We don't mind having a line joining here. We just need to make sure that these lines are kind of making sense, because that's the bottom of the block there. You might naturally have a bottom of a block coming here, but you definitely wouldn't have this line like that. So let's just shift that up. I'm just going to zoom in to let me see that, and let's use the front vertical offset. Again, I think I'm just going to bring the character hint press up on the keyboard to just help myself. I'm going to go left on it, and then I'm going to go 0.3, 0.4, and that should be about right there. So we've got rid of that line there. Okay, let's drop in the side one, which is going to be this. Need to have the same settings. So get the same image in from the side. Now we have, oh sorry, that's from the top. Let's undo that. Press Ctrl Z. Get the one from the right hand side. Drop that in. Okay, so now we have the image coming from left to right, and we just want to make sure that these lines line up with each other. So I'm just going to take the vertical offset and copy and paste that into the same one here. So vertical offset there, paste that in. Now we have those lines lining up. Let's look at this full screen and just go into the perspective view for a second. Okay, that's looking good enough for now. I mean, we may need this here. We may need to do a bit of clone stamping here and possibly here just to remove the line or adjust how the line's looking. Now, you could, if at this point, you could put the vertical triplanar projection in on the same node, but then what happens is then you can't color correct it inside that node. So it's probably easier just to create a separate one for that. So I'm going to create a separate one, create another triplanar projection here. Look through this, and this time I'm just going to do the top image. Go to the top one here, one I made earlier. Take version 3, and then let's affect the scale. Let's jump up to 500 to start off with. Have a look at it. So we just want to be careful here. We just need to make sure that the scale of this texture is looking appropriate to how the model would be. And I think that maybe this needs to start looking a bit smaller. So I'm just going to come here and let's just jump this up. I think that maybe this needs to come down a bit. Something like that is probably going to be good enough for now. And now we want to merge these two over the top of each other, and then press merge on the keyboard, and let's have a look at them. We've got that ready there. I'm going to start doing a little bit of color correcting now. So let's select this one here, and then I'm just going to press tab and type in merge. Sorry, press tab and type in grade. I'm just checking to make sure we have Rec 709 set here, and I double click on that. I think what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to adjust the gamma of this slightly, just to if I bring this down, it's going to make it look a little bit more contrasty. Maybe we'll have a look at moving the white point slightly to bring it a bit darker, and move the black point around slightly as well, to just get a little bit more contrast into the image. And now let's have a look at this. Let's look at this here. The top one, let's grade that as well. And I think I might just do a gamma correction on this, just to get this to kind of look similar. Maybe we'll just reset that a second and just step down, pressing down on the keyboard just to go down slightly. Okay, that's obviously jumping too much, so I'm going to go move the cursor to the right there, and now go to by point, just slowly down. Okay, that's looking quite good. Maybe the white point needs to come down a bit, so let's just bring that down to make it look a little bit darker, and then I might need to adjust the gamma as well. Something like that is probably okay to start off with. We've got the grade matching fairly similar. We might be worth using a HSV just to change the saturation slightly. So I'm going to press HSV, add that in there, and I will maybe drop the saturation scale down a bit. Let's just start tapping down with that a little bit, and that's looking a bit more grey, which is probably what we want. Okay, so this has got us into a good place. Let's combine this. Okay, so one of the things I've done here, which has probably caused a bit of confusion, is this is the channel here, and the channel should basically be going into the standard surface. So I'm going to bring that out, put that there, and then I'm going to put this as our checkpoint going into the diffuse color there. I've disconnected this base color because it's no longer needed in the tree. Here are the two metal tiled textures, and then here is our concrete. So this needs to go over the top. So select this first, then select that, and press merge on the keyboard. And then let's connect the output of the merge into the base color. So if you want to join the course now, the course will begin on the 4th of October. I hope to see you there, and thanks for watching.